So, motivators, as I said before, motivators are the reason that people get up in the morning, the reasons they do things, good, bad or otherwise. It's important to explore or understand some of those contributing factors because whilst they are not unique to the Asia Pacific audience, there are certainly some more dominant aspects and sometimes not remembered by airline providers or accommodation providers or even travel bookers. They often forget, but it's a considering factor that needs to be inclusive in any risk equation or evaluation of the health and safety of consumers and travellers themselves. So one of the big factors, particularly here in Asia Pacific, is the adventure, the excitement, the new experience of doing something that at times can potentially seem a little risque or underdeveloped, and travelling to a third world country or a developing economy, and just the excitement and entertainment that goes with that can be a compelling allure for individuals, up to and including where there's a growing trend of school leavers, year 12 graduates, now travelling to countries within the Asia Pacific region for adventure, often under the guise of being able to consume alcohol and less rules and so on. However, it's part of the adventure that draws people in and compels people to certain destination, as well as and inclusive of things that could be extreme sports, bungee jumping, parachuting, and a whole bunch of other things. It's important to understand, though, that whilst adventure and underdeveloped resources may be part of it, so too comes the inconsistency associated with the safety standards. Bungee jumping in some countries really is fraught with danger, and you are likely to meet an unsavoury end. However, some countries and some providers in certain locations, inclusive third world countries, have gone to extreme lengths to provide a superior service and a superior experience for their consumers, but this is certainly not consistent. So whilst it may be a compelling factor for people to pursue adventure and trekking through the jungles and being on boat rides through the jungle and a whole bunch of other things, whitewater rafting, that draw card itself can be an allure, like moths to a candle, that draw people in unnecessarily to a heightened exposure of risk. The culture itself, the experience or the immersion in a completely foreign environment, understanding what it's like to live and be, a different ethnicity, breed, religion, or whatever category is organised or used by individuals themselves. It may be the achievements of construction of that particular culture, the food, the diversity, the friendliness of that particular locale, and that can vary across the country, but just immersing oneself in the culture itself, particularly with the advent of, well, not the advent, but the influence of Hollywood movies and books and a whole bunch of other things, the romance associated with the culture. So people set out to pursue or engage in these types of activities that immerse themselves in the culture. But sometimes the reality or the small aspects of experiencing the culture and the immersion process can be overwhelming, difficult, or again expose people to a whole suite of safety and security issues that they were simply unaware of because they were so singularly focused on just the experience themselves or just the destination. Food. Food is becoming a compelling reason to travel or not to travel, and one of those what used to be a 1% or nuance that people simply went, that's part of the experience. Increasingly so is the ability and the desire to travel to certain destinations because of the passion of food, because of the culinary experience, because of the diversity and the richness or the experimentation that can potentially take place that they're simply not able to enjoy or be exposed to in their own locations. And this is also within Asia Pacific itself. So we're not just talking about Europeans, Americans and Australians, for example, travelling into Asia Pacific, but we're talking cross-pollinisation between Asiatic culture. So from the Philippines into China, China into Thailand, and India into Malaysia, and a whole host of different locations. And food can be a compelling reason that they're a foodie. They Instagram everything they eat. They talk about the recipes and they blog and they do leave reviews on certain sites. And everyone wants to be a travel reporter. So these aspects, or the elements of food itself, contribute to this particular drive and motivation. And expense, many instances of the expense of actually experiencing as much culinary diversity or richness as possible. Outright bragging rights. I went to X, Y, and Z, or I've been to here and you haven't been there, and it becomes a bit of a social competition. So the pursuit of bragging rights can be a double-edged sword in the sense that some people are willing to sacrifice better standards or better quality or more luxurious or premium services just for the rights of saying, yes, I was here or I went there. They may have slept under a bridge while I were there and had a horrible experience, but it's a stamp in their passport. It's an experience. It's bragging rights to them and their friends. They may have had a horrible time, but for outwardly to everybody, I've been there, that destination. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who does that has a bad experience, but the pursuit of just being able to say that I was at this airport or I was at this country or I did this, again, is a massive compelling reason for people to travel. And the Instagram and Twitter followers of celebrities, when they see them in these luxurious locations, they too then want to have these luxury photos and backdrops and all these sorts of things, or doing wonderful things just so they can brag, whether it's something they'll do face to face or over social media. It is a significant motivator, and particularly for a younger generation, the compelling reason why they select certain activities and destinations in the first place. Shopping has always been and will continue to be a compelling reason for certain people to travel, but it's becoming fiercely competitive between destinations, even airports now. Airports are having significant shopping wars, compelling people to shop not just duty-free, but a complete shopping mall experience at the airport without even having to enter the country. And certainly countries within the region, such as Singapore and Hong Kong and as far as Dubai and those sorts of areas, when it comes to shopping experiences, Seoul, Korea, those sorts of destinations are well known for their shopping experience at the airport. Now, shopping for certain things may vary. It may be the cultural aspects in the markets, it may be knickknacks and souvenirs, it may be high-end technology, it may be clothes, it may be household wares, but again, it's a compelling reason. Some people will even travel with empty suitcases to that destination, knowing that they're going to fill their bags with whatever it is that they're pursuing to shop in a destination, or if they travel as a group, one may have all of their clothes in one bag and everyone else travels with empty bags, so they can simply stuff it all in on their way home. So, shopping and understanding. So there's a lot of influence or research or understanding that goes into all of these decision making. And part of the problem and the question here is, as you should be alluding to at this point, is that how do they get that information in the first place? Who tells them that the shopping or the culture or the food in this destination is good, bad, or otherwise? And this is part of the problem that tourism departments and travel brokers and so on are facing, because there's just so much information out there, and we'll talk about that in terms of the negativity later on, is that sometimes they can be making a decision only to find a decision based on a friend or a social network or a news release, only to find that it was poorly researched, it wasn't accurate, it was completely untrue, and it spoils the experience for them. And then they, in turn, feed back into the system with negativity and so on. Personal development. Some people do travel to get away from it all, to go to areas, to regions that are less explored, have a simpler, lower speed of life, or to immerse themselves in a yoga, cultural, sort of Zen-like retreat. And there are still plenty of opportunities to do that in and around the Asia-Pacific region. It's not just about the busy crowds and the nightclubs and the dance and the entertainment and so on. Some people simply do it as part of their personal growth and development, as their spiritual desires, so to speak. They will travel just to get away, to be diversified, or to centre themselves, to see what it's like to experience a less entitled culture, or or what it's like for some very, very simple lifestyle means where communities may just still live in bamboo huts in the jungle, so to speak. And that can be very rewarding for individuals, or being able to help with a community, being able to help an orphanage or contribute to a particular community or build a bridge. There's a whole host of other things that are not just consumerism aspects such as shopping and food and so on. And of course, like it or not, sex, relationships, adult and otherwise, is still a significant motivator and activity within the Asia region. Not only for those coming into the region, but also, as I said, sort of cross borders. China's one-child policy has had a significant negative aspect where there's a significant greater population of males than there is females. So, therefore, many are forced to travel abroad to try and find wives. There is obviously both legal and illegal aspects of the sex trade and a whole host of good, bad and otherwise that go with it. Some of them have been turned into family commercialised elements where there may even be a night market accompanying areas which are known to be red light brothel districts. But sex, again, is a powerful motivator for both males and females. But as many of you will understand, is that there is a significant male population that travels exclusively for this particular agenda. Education. This can embody all of the elements that have been mentioned thus far. However, the education or pursuit or diversity, you'll have many developing economies that are travelling abroad for a better education, for a degree, for an opportunity, for a job, and those aspects contribute significantly to the tourism, whether it be short-term or long-term employment or education. They want to learn something, they want to put it into practice, and you'll get a lot of, and we see quite a lot of Asian students travelling abroad where they can get education, and also now an influx of second and third tier education providers now benefiting from cheaper airfares and accommodation, supporting a student base that they simply would not have had access to years ago. So we see a much younger, sometimes, traveller in this instance because they're travelling for education. But it also goes all the way up to the MBA classes and advanced degrees and so on, or even teachers for that matter. But education is also becoming a reason, or collective group. It may be school groups that are doing a field study tour, and they are becoming more and more prolific, or almost, well, they are an expectation for many students now, that particularly if you live in reside in the Asia Pacific region, where are we going next? I'll need my passport for the next school trip, whereas in other cultures, it may have only been 2 or 3 hour journey away. Now it's where are we going abroad? And the views, the vistas, the panoramas, the sheer scenery that abounds in so many areas. Despite everybody wanting to Snapchat it and take photos and share it on Instagram, there is still a love of and a beauty associated with a tranquility associated with some areas that are untouched by technology, untouched by civilization, or simply not seen by many. It's an experience. It could be something as simple as a fishing village. It could be a pure white beach, or it could be mountains or fog on a jungle mountaintop. Again, a compelling reason. They may never leave the hotel where they're going, or they may have to track for hours and days in order to get there. But the sheer scenery and views are what people are also seeking to consume, so they can either file it away in their own memory banks, or they can take photos of it and share it with their friends. And again, it ties into the bragging rights and so on. And let's not forget the entitlement or reward. People have been working hard, and it's an achievement. It's I've now made it. I deserve this because I've sacrificed X, Y, and Z. Or travel is a substitute for what may have been savings, or buying a house, or investment in some other kind. Travel, entertainment, activity, it's an entitlement or a self-reward along the way. And it may be a work-sponsored or a community-sponsored, but there is a sense of entitlement or reason that people are travelling is because they are rewarding themselves. So these are significant motivators as to why people are travelling. So you can imagine, the decision-making process, that these are the things that are first and foremost in people's mindset when they're making decisions. These are the things that they're entertaining or considering before they even make a single booking or commitment or pay a single dollar. And we must remember those factors, because they then feed into our equations later on as to how we manage or we consider risk.